All right. So, this bust behind us here, how many people are aware of this bust? Put your hands up. Give me a show of hands. How many people are aware of it? So out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, out of about 20 people, we're talking about 25% are aware of what this bust is. For the 75% who don't know what this bust is or who this represents, if you look out here, we're situated out in front of the library. The Great Library of Brixton. Now most people around here call it the library. They just say the Brixton Library and that's it. But if you look at the top, the actual correct title of this building is the what? Right. The Tate Central Free Public Library. This library, the Tate Central Library, is one of 3 libraries that Tate funded in the borough of Lambeth over 100 years ago. And for those of you who don't know, Mr. Tate was a man of immense wealth. Immense wealth. Not a little bit of wealth, but immense wealth. This man was a millionaire in the 1800s. In today's money, a millionaire from the 1800s would be what? He'd be a billionaire. Easy. Easy. Even more. No problem. Okay? And the interesting thing about Mr. Tate, how did Tate make his money? Now that's what we're going to look at. Any ideas? Tate and Lyle.
Sugar and coffee.
Sugar and coffee.
Rum.
Rum. The stuff that we was partaking in. Yes? So we're going to do the knowledge on how this wealth came into Lambeth. If at the same time, you look and you see where Mr. Tate is looking at, he's looking across to the town hall. Grade 2 listed building. The library, Grade 2 listed building. The Ritzy, Grade 2 listed building. All these buildings went up around the same time because a whole heap of money came into Britain. And that's what we're looking at. So think about this one. If you go to the optician and you have your eyes tested, if you have perfect vision, what do they say? You have what? You have 20/20 vision. Right. What year are we in? 2020. Now think about this one. If we're in the year 2020, and if you get your eyes tested, you have 20/20 vision, if you have perfect vision, this is the year of what? Perfect vision. And if there's one thing that the corona crisis and the lockdown has shown us, it's ripped the sheet off of what we believe was a civilized society. True or false? Every single structural inequality of this society was revealed during corona. Every single structural rift in this society. The sound of police sirens in Brixton is relentless. Have you realized that? It's like psychological warfare. So you just hear the constant sound of sirens. The constant sound of sirens. You hear it so often, you don't even hear it anymore. It's like birds twittering in the breeze. Pretty sounds. Let's get back to Corona and what it revealed. So tell me some of the things that you have witnessed during this period of lockdown with your vision. Tell me some of the stuff that you've seen. Elderly people are getting what?
They're not getting killed.
And how your blood type relates to what medicine you get.
Elderly people don't get no care. What did you say, sir?
virus, it stops your breathing.
Stops you breathing.
But there's a synergy with obviously the
Okay. Uh-huh. Anything else?
Reduction of knife crime.
Reduction of knife crime during Corona. Okay. Reduction of knife crime.
But how people of ethnic minorities are the most vulnerable.
How?
Disposable.
What was that one? Ethnic minorities.
Yeah, of black people.
Okay.
People of African descent.
People of African descent. 4 times more likely. 4 times more likely to die from COVID-19, aka Corona, than any other group. So what it did for the people that I know, it put us into a state of siege, stress, depression. Now imagine this one. See, I ain't lying. I ain't lying. One of the main things that affects your immune system is stress. Stress. So when they try to work out why are black people 4 times more likely to die from corona, and then you heard people talking about, well, maybe they have a genetic predisposition to corona.
Because there's more stress serving.
More stress.
Yeah, exactly.
Notice that there was a period when those positions that we occupied, as the brother points out, those low paying positions, those £10 an hour positions, when we could be bought and sold very, very cheaply, during Corona, all of a sudden, those disposable workers became essential workers. Did you hear the language? It just shifted so quickly. We went from being disposable to what? Essential. What do you understand by the term essential?
Needed.
totally necessary.
Totally necessary, needed,
Valued.
valued. The rejected stone becomes the cornerstone. If we wasn't out there driving the buses, working in them hospitals, doing them frontline delivery jobs, so all them people that could be laid up inside their house, working from home, still drawing their consecutive wages, to allow them to function, those people at the bottom of our society were still out on the front line. Without the correct PPE, with added stress, with the wrong diet. My dad, who lives in Barbados, phoned me one day and we was talking. He said to me, son, he said, you know the major thing for your immune system? I said, what's that, Dad? He said, vitamin D, man. He says, the blasted vitamin D. He says, you're right. He said, son, what's the main source of vitamin D? Sunlight. He said, when I told you to leave England because there's no future for black people and come to Barbados, you stayed in England. He said, and right now, I'm on my veranda, sipping a rum punch in the sun. My vitamin D is boosted up. You in grey England, 4 times more likely to die from the corona. I said, I hear you, Pops, I hear you. I should listen to you. So today being Father's Day, big up to my Pops for raising me with a certain amount of knowledge. So let's get back to the vision. Corona pulled the sheet off of this so-called civilized society that we live in. Corona exposed the racist undercurrent of this society. So even when the government did its inquiry into why black people were 4 times more likely, they didn't want to release the report because they felt that in this current climate, it would have been too emotive. What do you understand by that? Someone talk to me. It could have started a war.
Ask questions and wanted answers.
Could have started a race war. I hear that. To take it back a couple of steps before the war, what it would have done, it was that it would have made people fully aware of what they're under. Because for some reason, we still have this belief that this country is a civilized society that deals with people equally. Some people are still drinking the Kool-Aid. So here we go. Yes, brother, all right. So here we go. It's all about the context. all the marching, all the high rates of death, all the depression, all of the broken down immune system, all of the fact that I got a couple spars who drive buses, and then the bus drivers was getting licked. And they went out and people were clapping for the NHS. And one of the brothers who works at Stockwell Bus Garage phoned me and said, yo, Rash, they don't acknowledge us as the bus drivers. And we are the ones that are driving the nurses to work. We keep this town moving. But because we're all black and we're all male, they don't want to recognize us. No one's clapping for the bus drivers. Please, clap for the bus drivers. Cameraman, get this. For the bus drivers. Because at the end of the day, it was the bus drivers who kept this place running. They really kept this town running. And we didn't acknowledge them. Until the bus drivers told me that because they was black and because they was male, they could not be acknowledged by this society. Because it doesn't fit into the narrative as a black man having anything to offer apart from some rap and some football and some knife crime and some gang crime and some bad behavior. The idea of black men being heroes doesn't fit the narrative, so rather than have the conversation about that, let's just ignore them. So big up to all the man that was driving the buses. Context. It's all about context. This statue here, this bust of Henry Tate, over 10 years ago, me and a brother named Colin Marriott. Anyone know Colin Marriott? No? On Railton Road, Dexter Road Playground. That used to be on the old front line. Colin was the senior youth worker that fought to keep that place running for years and years. Old school West Indian man. And me and Colin would be in the office after hours and talking all kinds of revolutionary talk. And we were talking about this statue. And over 10 years ago, Colin said to me, and we should put it out for Colin as well. Colin said to me, Rash, make me and you one night come down here, dress up in black, put some rope around this thing and pull it down. I said, what? He said, pull it down, Rasta. I said, Colin, you know, that's vandalism. He said, I don't care, brother. He said, all my heroes went to jail. Garvey went to jail. Malcolm went to jail. Even Martin Luther King went to jail. He said, so I don't mind going to jail for pulling down a statue of Henry Tate. I said, what's up with you and Henry Tate? He said, you know how much plantations Henry Tate owned in the Caribbean? I said, what? I said, but Henry Tate never owned slaves. He said, no, he didn't own slaves. And this is where Tate and Lyle and the Tate Library and the Tate Gallery and Tate Modern and the university up in Liverpool and whatever else got their money from Tate, this is what they always hide behind. They always say to you, Tate never owned slaves. Tate never owned slave plantations. Because Henry Tate was born in the year, I think it was 1819. When was slavery abolished in the Caribbean?
1833.
They passed the act in 1833. The act came into power in 1834. But what happened was that included in the act, they said that the slaves will have to serve what they called a period of apprenticeship, which basically meant you was a slave. And they had to serve a 4-year period of apprenticeship. So they were still slaves, even though the act had been passed. And so the act came in 1834, and they actually got their freedom in 1838. Upon losing control of their slaves, the slave owners in England received compensation. The people who did the work for free weren't compensated. The people who owned them were compensated. The so-called great and the good. William Gladstone, Prime Minister, his father was one of the largest slave owners in the Caribbean. Gladstone spoke against abolishing slavery. He's the great Prime Minister. So when you see these statues up and down Westminster and Whitehall, understand the story behind the statue. It's all about the what? The context. It's all about the context. Don't just go out there and tear down a statue of an old English hero and throw it into the river on camera in front of the eyes of the public. Because what will happen is they will come for you. You will be found, you will be prosecuted, and you will be convicted and put in jail. They have to do that.
But just like your friend, people are not concerned about that.
People aren't concerned about that.
I don't mind doing a little tree bump.
I get that.
Just imagine if he was, I'm going to get a picture.
I get that. I get that, and each to his own. But remember, it's all about the what? The context. The context. Forget the emotional stuff. We got a prison system right now that's filled with young men who are there because of what? Emotions. Emotions. In the heat of the moment, bam! Next thing you know, you're trying to get out of the country. Next thing you know, you're trying to get a passport to go to some faraway place. Next thing you know, you're on the run. Next thing you know, you're being arrested, they're kicking off your door. Next thing you know, you're up at the Old Bailey. Next thing you know, you're being prosecuted. Next thing you know, you're doing 25 years. For what? For emotions.